Petersburg doing? What are they drawing right now? And they would be able to do it. They would accurately and reliably be able to do this.
What kind of hit?
Look, you know what? I will give you the documentation, and you can look at it. It is absolutely creepy.
Because the same experiment can be done with a magnetic resonance imaging machine, and it's being done right now. That's if you're trying to get like are people psychic? If that's what you are trying to illustrate here, no. People are really good at guessing, and people are very predictable. I thought this was going to go someplace like, look at these gross medical experiments. And like, once you've seen, some of the shit they did in the United States with injecting
Look, Laz, you're just
men.
I'm just going to give you the data, and you can deal with it as you wish.
I'm not throwing it out. It's not as, it's probably not.
I'm not saying, look, I'm not taking a value argument about whether they're right or wrong. What I simply am observing is that there's a long history of this sort of investment by the Russians.
They also strapped bombs to bats.
Look, I'm not saying that crazy or irrational testing or strange bad science was not invested by.
Was pretty good.
But what I am saying is that there's a huge amount of additional declassified information that has come out, some of which has historical interest and is worth looking into.
It's almost as bad as the DARPA experiment where they were trying to do wireless controlled testing of a prosthetic limb. And so they put the remote receiver in the primary motor cortex of the monkey. And they tried to get the monkey to control the robotic arm with its mind. Well, somewhere through the experiment, they just could not get this monkey to control this robotic arm. So they're doing diagnostics on the robotic arm, and the arm stops responding all of a sudden. They're like, what the fuck is wrong with the arm? And they keep like messing with it, like make it go up, and the vet purportedly the vet walks in and is like, you need to fucking stop, because like they go to the monitor with the monkey, and the monkey's poor arm is like going fucking crazy. They're remotely. No,
I understand, Lazarus. I'm just simply saying this is the testing that they conducted. Whether or not you agree with it or you believe it's a hoax or that it's a deliberate disinformation campaign, all of those things are certainly possible. I'm simply saying that their observation is that they've had these different tests which have been conducted. And some of the outcomes, for instance, it's well covered. You can go ahead and...
I will be more than happy to take a look at this. I will tell you now, though, what it likely is, and this is something that is constantly being criticized by them. It's why DARPA is a thing. It's why you don't let three-letter agencies do their own investigations like this anymore. There is a great pressure, or especially during the Cold War, there was great pressure put on those scientific personnel to make impossible things possible. And oftentimes you get things like, this totally works, we can do this. You couldn't do that, it was not actually a thing, but you told your boss that, because that's what they want to hear.
I think Ark's point is that this is some crazy stuff that we did.
I mean, we did a lot of crazy ass shit. We tried to make robot monkeys. Saw how well that went. We tried to strike bombs to bats and have them, like, roost in, like, buildings and shit. So you release all these bat bombs, right? And the bats would run around and they, like, nest in barns overnight or some shit, and then you blow them up.
I've come to...
On paper, that's not a bad idea until the bats are, like, in caves and shit. And, like...
Look, my point is that whether or not you agree with it, the fact of the matter is where there were extensive tests conducted by both superpowers that dealt with, among other things, mind control, extrasensory perception. Right,
Superhuman strength was a really popular one.
But what is interesting to me, and I'll get to it, is the extent to which the Germans during the war were experimenting with unusual aircraft frame designs, and this gives rise to a whole variety of different technologies, jet fighter craft, flying wings, etc., which you're all aware of, the V1, V2 rockets, ballistic missiles in general, that sort of technology. That's widely accepted. You see it. It's not crazy. It's not science fiction. But where it does get a bit more strange is the extent to which the Germans and most of their major aircraft manufacturers were involved with an entirely different type of platform, which, drumroll please, is clearly a flying saucer. So what the science behind it is simply that if you have a disk and you put jet engines firing in such a way that they're creating a sort of top, you know how you spin a top, that type of extreme velocity, it does create a levitation effect, and they created a whole variety of different platforms. We're talking about most of the major German aircraft manufacturers produce working prototypes along this design. And after the war, we, the French, the Canadians, the English, and the Russians all began construction of our own platforms to do the same thing. And so many of these sightings that came out and the CIA documented may simply be examples of these platforms having been tested extensively during this period of time.
That's so cool.
But the fact of the matter is the prototypes did exist, were worked on, were aerodynamically feasible, and there were hundreds of different models made. Now, where the fuck the Germans got the idea to do this is where it gets really weird. Where did the Germans get the idea to do this stuff?
Imagination. Duh.
No, apparently it comes out of something. No, it's a little bit more bizarre. It comes out of their Indo-Aryan research in a very specific place. But I won't get into the conjecture about that, but the point of the matter is that they did it. Whatever their motivations were and the specific sources of where they all of a sudden got that knowledge from is very odd.
Aliens.
Aliens is what you meant to say.
No. What we're talking about is ultimately they thought these designs were of significant enough value that we conducted a huge amount of production of our own platforms to see the viability of it. We did it, and I said the rest of our allies did it, and the Russians did it. But my point is, we weren't the ones who came up with it. The scientists who figured this stuff out, the ones who pushed for it, the original designs, what they were trying to accomplish were almost entirely from German aircraft engineers, aerospace engineers, designers, physicists, and whatever else you would like to say. They were making some incredibly advanced airframes.
Well, apparently they also released the secret to hiding invisible ink in your laundry.
Well, there you go. But it's not science fiction. These designs were widely created.
No, it's not science fiction, but that last part of the sentence where you're implying that they got it from like ancient aliens is definitely science fiction. That's pretty much the definition.
I
of
don't. We
science
have no
fiction.
idea where they got it
No,
from.
you're just perilously dancing upon the edge of it.
We don't know. We don't know. So the idea is that they came up with these airframe designs. Where is the basis from it? What's going on with it? I don't know. There's no conjecture put in. What? You're a scientist.
Yes, and as a scientist, I can smell that you're basically like you're implying that like they got it from some non-human source by looking at ancient ruins. What?
They could have just got.
It's a fucking disc. They put it in a goddamn like wind tunnel. I'm like, oh shit, discs work really well.
They probably just got like stoned on some kind of like crazy drug and just like
No.
came up with it one day and were like,
Everyone, no, even fucking Da Vinci had flying saucer fucking like shapes because it
Because
just
they
makes
work.
sense.
They aerodynamically work. I'm not going to go into the specifics of like you can look for these early designs that we did, why they work.
The thing is stopping it. I mean, the CIA didn't just make a working prototype; they made a goddamn plane off the design, and that you can't land it. There was a problem with it. It was one of the before they made the Blackbird, they were trying to make saucer-like planes, and they can't land. They go so goddamn
right.
fast, they just kind of crash.
Well, we started moving in a direction towards these. So what you'll see in the last image, those are you're aware of them. Those are the
Alright, so approaching now.
those were the flying
70.
wing prototypes that the Germans
Right.
had. We captured them after the war. They became our flying wing aspects of what we're doing to do. But
Okay, they scaled
uh,
to me, 72. What level, Wild Logger? You still in here?
Yep.
What
I
level
mean,
are the
like I
mobs?
told you, one of the major reasons you have the Defense Advanced Research Project Administration is because during the Cold War, especially, you had a situation where a lot of money was spent on a lot of bogus shit that didn't have a lot of good bearing.
Well, I have a question. When did the frisbee? When was the frisbee invented?
Oh fuck, I don't know.
Because maybe, like, you ever think like someone just threw a frisbee one day and was just like, what if we could turn this into something that like,
No, it was definitely no. If you're asking where do flying saucers, why does the flying wing exist? If you are a student of aeronautics, they teach you a mini sets of shapes that are really, really good at moving through air, and one of those is a disc.
How much HP?
Didn't it start with some teacher threw a plate at a student?
That's
No,
55.
The student came back.
He respawned really quickly.
Alright, just a minute. They do in fact scale to the level of the original zone.
right, so they went all the way down to level 50.
Yeah, because we have a level 20 in the group that just went into the area.
And what was the level according to him?
It said it was question mark, but it had 3,151 health. That is that level of a mod that it used
about
to be.
what you would have at level 55.
Yeah.
So it only goes to 55 to 60.
So-
you still have to
All right,
It
so the
scales
answer
up.
is it's not universally scaled.
This
But
could
what
be
they
a good
have done
start.
is that they brought the scaling all the way down to level 55, which means at that point it's not a carbon copy of the Broken Isles, and therefore is likely operating on the principle of whatever the zone was, it goes between that and 110. Yeah.
Which is good, actually. Can you imagine if they actually had, like, regular quests scaling this way? Now, you can go, like, actually quest through, say, Elwyn Forest, and actually get all of those quests done by, like, doing your Lore Master and still be rewarded for your level. And then actually have a reason to go to the next zone once you get it, or
World
you
of Warcraft
can
operates on a
win it.
different leveling and gearing philosophy. If I was 110 in item level
User
at like
disconnected from your
890,
channel.
for example, why would I go back and quest? Those rewards will be, at best, item level 110 greens.
That's
joined
fine,
your
but
channel.
I was talking about giving people a reason to actually do their quests, so that way they don't have to just like power level speed through. They can still have their heirlooms, and they can stay in, say, Elwyn Forest until they are done with it. They can get all the quests done and still be being rewarded as though they were in the next zone at least. Say that you hit level 10, but you still have like half the zone to go. You get done around like level
Sure.
15, and you still get the rewards as if you were in a level 15 zone.
Sure, but I think you'd have to look at metrics that I'm not personally aware of. I mean, I don't know if Blizzard ever released them. How often do people stay in a zone? But that's an interesting question to ask. Because if on the average people don't stay in a zone, the question becomes, is that because they're done with the quest or because they feel like they need to move on to the next one?
It'll
Or
give
does the data indicate that because of the leveling redesign in Cataclysm, where the zones have a storyline that changes, do people basically just follow the storyline until they pick up the quest that tells them to go to the next zone?
No, people don't go in the zone because you're not getting experience from quests anymore. If they want people to experience what they've done and do
User
all the
joined your
lore,
channel.
then why not just have it scale to them so they can finish
Does
a
Blizzard
zone?
care if you're in not Broken Isles?
They do right now.
Do they?
Yeah.
They mostly just care about Broken Isles.
Yeah, but I'm in Silithith right now, and they're doing it in Silithith.
That's a micro holiday. That's
I
different.
know,
User left your channel.
but why wouldn't
That's not Elwyn
they?
Forest. That's not the totality of the old world. That's just one holiday from a historic event that happened in the game.
I
It's
know,
different.
but the point is, if they're experimenting with this now, what happens when they receive enough feedback about, hey, why don't we do this for more minor things, like questing, for
You are
example?
presuming that they are going to receive a lot of positive feedback. that there are a lot of feedback